Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Department of Family and Support Services Career Exploration and Employment Preparation RFP webinar. Just a few housekeeping rules. Due to the volume of participants, everyone has been placed on mute. Please submit questions via the questions box and we'll respond to questions at the midpoint and end of the presentation. Please also make use of the question box to notify us of any technical issues. Please be advised that this webinar is being recorded and anything stated at this webinar is not intended to change the solicitation document. Any changes will be in writing in the form of an addendum issued by the Department of Family and Support Services. And the purpose of this webinar is to provide information for the solicitation. A copy of the recording will be posted on our YouTube channel with a link to the recording, and a PDF of the PowerPoint slides will be posted to the DFSS webpage. Please check under the alerts and/or funding opportunity tabs. And please give this up to 5 business days to upload. DFSS retains the right to share a list of registrants to this webinar along with their contact and organizational information at our discretion. As for the agenda, I'm going to start off with introductions. Would the workforce team like to start?
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Sanders II. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Workforce Services.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Corey Booker. I am the supervisor here at DFSS for Workforce Services. Thank you for joining us.
And I am the Procurement Proposal Coordinator, Jillian Black. I will be speaking on the application tips towards the end of the webinar. But as of now, we're going to go through the purpose of the RFP, background, information about the scope and program description, the selection criteria, the timeline, technical assistance for applicants and e-procurement, and then for questions. And at this time, I'm going to pass it over to Workforce.
All right, thank you. Corey and I, we are very excited to be sharing this opportunity with you. We're grateful that all of you were available to join. And so the purpose of this RFP, the Department of Family and Support Services is seeking youth-serving workforce development organizations to deliver career exploration and employment preparation programs for young adults ages 18 to 24. The purpose of this proposal is to support young adults facing complex needs and barriers to employment. While the program may serve a broad range of disadvantaged young people, including young people with disabilities and other young adults facing significant barriers to workforce participation, we want to maintain that priority will be given to youth and young adults who are disconnected from education and employment, youth and young adults who are justice involved, youth who are currently transitioning from foster care, as well as youth and young adults experiencing homelessness or housing instability. These aren't the only people we want to serve, but we will want to prioritize them in this project. Selected respondents must provide pre-apprenticeship and workforce readiness services, occupational skills training aligned with career pathways, access to educational support and credential attainment, leadership development and work-based learning experiences, as well as high-quality post-program placement outcomes. Next slide. And so the purpose, again, we want to fund up to 6 programs across 2 service models. And so this is a unique model that we are developing for this program. And so we want to have one recruitment-focused respondent that will lead outreach and large-scale recruitment of youth job seekers. They will serve as an entry point to workforce and education services. We would like them to coordinate workforce service delivery among job seekers and to facilitate seamless connections to workforce service providers. The second portion of this program, Program B, we would like to identify 5 industry-specific skills training, and placement programs. We want these organizations to deliver career pathways navigation and job readiness training. We would like them to provide pre-apprenticeship and/or industry-specific skills training. We would like them to offer case management and supportive services, make available, we want them to support participants in completing high school diploma or equivalency, if that is a requirement that they need. And we also want to facilitate placement into permanent employment or occupational skills training. Next slide. And so system performance goals. And so for our outreach and recruitment organization, we want them to enroll and refer people at a very high volume for this program. We want them to recruit a minimum of 3,000 participants over the year. There may be more need to be recruited in order to hit that target goal of 3,000. And we want to screen and enroll 3,000 unduplicated young adults, ages 18 to 24, and make them refer them over to our workforce providers. We want to connect a minimum of 600 participants collectively into unsubsidized employment or advanced occupational skills training aligned with their chosen career path. And so again, of those 3,000, we would want to ensure that 600 of those participants transition into permanent employment and they maintain that employment. We also want to ensure that if they have a desire to gain additional skills and training, that you are helping connect them to that next step in their career path. And so provider qualifications. We want organizations with demonstrated high impact as well as cost-efficient workforce development infrastructure. We want them to have experience operating workforce programs, and here are a list of examples, whether they are managing a WIOA program for youth, adults, or dislocated workers. If they are leading a reentry employment opportunities, we would like them to apply. If you have experience with Youth Build or Job Corps, you are likely a good candidate for this opportunity. Or if you are currently one of our DFSS workforce program providers in any of our program categories, this may be a good fit for you as well. Or if you're familiar with the Wagner, Peisner, or similar employment placement models, we would like for you to consider this opportunity. Next slide. And so this is just an overview of our Workforce Services Division. Our priorities are to mobilize innovative workforce solutions tailored to the distinct challenges faced by vulnerable Chicago residents. This RFP seeks to complement the employment services offered by the DFSS Youth Services Division to further strengthen outcomes for Chicago's young people. Our Youth Services Division primarily focuses on early work experiences and foundational skills building. Our Workforce Services Division emphasizes career pathways, industry-aligned training, as well as ultimately employment placement. With this program, DFSS is working toward a more coordinated continuum of services. We want to support young people as they transition into sustained education and employment opportunities, especially those that have experienced significant barriers to employment, like our priority populations. This RFP is designed to enhance existing youth employment services and expand access to career exploration. I know everyone should be familiar with our Chicago Youth Works program available now. And so this is not to replace that or supplement that. We want to enhance that, and we want to serve additional participants to make sure that 18 to 24-year-olds, especially those with barriers to employment, are getting access to these services and ultimately to job opportunities. Next slide. I will pass it to Corey for a few slides.
Thanks, Mark. So the goals of this program are kind of specific and measurable. Here at DFSS, we're focused on reducing those barriers to participation, kind of through that coordinated outreach, early engagement, and sustained follow-up. while ensuring equitable kind of citywide access for those young adults that are 18 to 24, all while also strengthening kind of like that pipeline from recruitment through enrollment, through training, and then through employment. So beyond participation, this program kind of aims to improve that retention and completion rates while also preparing participants to earn those kind of early industry recognized credentials that are more so aligned kind of with their chosen career paths, and also supporting those transitions into permanent employment that offers real opportunities for advancement and long-term economic stability, which is some of the goals that we have here at DFSS. Everything in these programs, from that recruitment target to performance metrics, kind of map back to all of these goals. And we want them to keep them in your forefront as you are developing those proposals for us. And with that, we can kind of get into the background that kind of led us to this model. Jillian, you can hit me with the next slide, please. So again, we know that young adults with complex needs face multiple kind of like interconnected barriers to stable employment. So that could be housing instability, couch surfing, homelessness, justice system involvement, limited access to supportive networks, and ongoing financial pressure. And so we think that without targeted intervention, these challenges typically lead to like that short-term, low-wage work with limited upward mobility. And we are in an effort trying to end that cycle. So our response here at DFSS is kind of an upstream career pathway focused approach that prioritizes long-term workforce attachment rather over quick placements. And so this model integrates job readiness training, paid work-based learning, and also that direct employer engagement piece to prepare those young adults for more in-demand occupation that gives them the opportunity for, again, economic stability and growth. We are looking for respondents to align kind of their training with those labor market demands, support attainment of those industry recognized credentials, and also deliver those comprehensive trauma-informed services that address both skills and those non-academic barriers. These are requirements of the program, so we want to see them reflected in your responses when you are putting together your proposals. The outcomes are structured across 3 levels. So there's short term, which is increased work readiness, credential attainment, and skill development. There's the intermediate piece that's those seamless kind of connections to employment training and work-based learning and or skill development. Long term, which is employment retention, wage growth, and sustained economic stability. And we just want you to keep these things in mind as you are developing your proposals. Jillian, you can hit me with the next slide, which we'll get into some priorities and best practices here for DFSS. So we designed this program from evidence-informed workforce development practices that have been proven to improve those outcomes for young adults that are facing those barriers to employment. We think that effective workforce models don't treat recruitment, training, and employer connections as separate activities. They're more so kind of aligned intentionally, and that's kind of our core principle here with the RFP. We think that selected respondents will operate within a coordinated dual structure, and that's one that centralizes that outreach, intake, and referral while distributing training and case management and employer connections across these providers. We think this is going to reduce fragmentation, strengthen service coordination, and also kind of create those clear pathways from entry to employment and advance for occupational skills training. Again, as you are developing your proposals, these are kind of some of those examples that you'll use to demonstrate what your organization has done in the past, and also what you will build out if you were to be awarded for this program.
Yes, I just want to jump in to emphasize some of these bullets. And so that collaboration across recruitment, we really want our outreach agency to be able to identify and connect with eligible participants. And we want our workforce programs to be maintaining a system or a model that allows for people to get quickly connected to their particular program or service, and then ultimately get that ongoing case management and coaching and support until they are connected to that next step in their process. And so we want to make sure that people are being responsive to the outreach and recruitment teams as they identify participants. And so they will be that central source of intake and assessment. And so they will understand who our partners are, what their capacity is, where they're located. And so using the information that they collect from our participants, they will use that to connect them to someone within their community and align and as best as they can, aligning with their long-term career goals. And so as you all receive those referrals, those workforce agencies will, again, do that next level of assessment and training, provide that ongoing case management, and then ultimately the connection to those employment opportunities. Next slide. And so our target population, I'll take this, Corey, is 18 to 24-year-olds residing in Chicago. And I also do want to pause and acknowledge that we have our Deputy Commissioner of Deputy Commissioner of Youth Services on the call. And so I will pause to let her introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. Please excuse my tardiness. So good to see everyone here. Looking forward to seeing all of the great responses we get and placing some young people in some jobs. Thanks, Mark.
All right, thank you. And so our priority focus, again, is on those who are disconnected from education and employment, those who are system impacted, justice involved, youth who are currently in or transitioning from foster care, individuals experiencing homelessness or housing instability. We want to make sure that they are first on our list when we are doing our recruitment. And we want to make sure that they are getting priority services once they get connected to our workforce providers. And so our engagement expectations is that we will utilize targeted, assertive outreach strategies aligned with participant needs. We'll incorporate warm handoffs, individualized follow-up, and system partnerships. We'll deliver trauma-informed and culturally responsive engagement, and we'll ensure equitable access and sustained participation throughout the program. And so, again, just making sure that as people become aware of the program, we're doing that assessment to prioritize people according to what their barriers to employment are and how they can be best supported. And that's where we want to incorporate all these the buzzwords in a sense, but they mean something to us at DFSS, trauma-informed and culturally responsive. And so whether that's via language, whether that's community area, whatever the case may be, listening to what that young person needs and doing our best to connect them to the appropriate resources with adults who listen, understand, and are supportive of their long-term goals. And so when we're talking about warm handoffs, individualized follow-up, there's going to be a few ways that we want to connect with individuals. And so pulling back from this particular slide, we want to make sure that those young people who are currently applying for Chicago Youth Works, those who ideally everyone gets an opportunity to connect with a job through that process. However, we've seen in previous years where not everyone is able to get connected to a program. And so the goal of this initiative is to make sure that as many people as possible are being connected to the appropriate workforce resources. And so if we can't connect with them via email, we want to make sure we're following up with phone calls as we get them connected to programming. If we've built a relationship where we know where they live and they need additional in-person support, we are just being proactive and engaging them in ways that ensure that they stay within the program and that they get the benefit of these trainings and services that are being provided, and that they are ultimately prepared and connected to work opportunities. Next slide. And so I'll pass it to Corey to talk about Program A.
Okay, so Program A. Program A, again, is to serve as the centralized system entry point for all of those participants. And you will also lead that citywide outreach, assessment, and also referral into Program B. Essentially. So the scope of service is, of course, the entire city of Chicago. Program A is going to conduct the outreach across all 77 Chicago community areas. They are broken down in a little more detail in the RFP. So just make sure you're referring to that as you are building out your responses. And we want at least 60% of those participants will come from those priority communities. Again, with you prioritizing those disconnected youth, those justice involved individuals, foster care youth, and youth experiencing housing instability. As you're kind of like building out those responses too, just ensure that you are using these terms to describe to us exactly who it is that you'll be prioritizing and how you'll be recruiting them. And Jillian, you can hit me with the next slide. Okay, so on the operations side, Program A is kind of not like just a passive intake. It's kind of like real-time active coordination. So you'll provide those same day referrals and warm handoffs to Program B. You'll confirm that day one attendance and also manage that referral flow. You'll maintain partnerships with Chicago Public Schools, those justice systems, different CBOs within the workforce ecosystem, and also other workforce providers. You will be responsible for providing a $25 intake stipend. And you may elect to offer those additional incentive payments that are tied into other program milestones as well. All of those stipends will be paid by you or whoever your fiscal agent will be. If you're applying aside a fiscal agent, you'll be responsible for paying those stipends to those participants, and they must be clearly reflected in that budget. We also are looking for you for participant supports to issue those day one transportation supports. Operationally, Program A has to maintain centralized intake, your data systems. You're going to ensure adequate staffing for that high volume recruitment. So we want to know how many staff you're working with, who's responsible for what their caseloads could possibly be in your responses, all while maintaining that compliance on our side. So those DFSS, city and state, federal requirements. Keep in mind that this is a reimbursement-based contract, so all agencies must be prepared to front those upfront costs. And we can now look into how this is kind of funded. Jillian, you can hit me with the next slide. Okay, so the total anticipated budget for Program A is $361,914. That's a big chunk. So the funding is split between two sources. That's some Title X funds that's supporting operations, kind of staffing, admin, and also direct service industry, as well as some corporate funds that are supporting participant costs, including those stipends and transportation. So if you take a look at that sample budget that's here on the screen, staffing for 4 recruiters is the largest line at $200,000 in the Title 20 funds. You can break these down how you see fit within your costs. You will ensure that your indirect costs are going to be capped at 15%. Unless federally approved for a higher rate. As you're turning in your sample budgets, you'll kind of demonstrate that for us. Again, here listed is the $25 stipend that's required for each participant upon completion of that assessment, along with that day one transportation support for attendance. Again, like I said before, this is reimbursement only. You must be prepared to begin your program on July 1st of this year and also cover those expenses prior to reimbursement. So we are looking for you to have some cash on hand for you to be able to operate this program. Budget submissions must align with the scale of recruitment, staffing structure, and that overall program design. And Jillian, you can hit me with the next slide. So for program A, some of those performance goals and outcomes, DFSS seeks respondents with evidence of strong past performance recruiting with the target population. So again, you're going to recruit, screen, and assess a minimum of 3,000 participants. We put annually just in case, but for this year, 3,000 participants is going to be your cap. You're going to also refer out to program B. And then we've built in some benchmarks just to ensure that the recruitment agency is meeting these goals. And then we'll build in some technical assistance on the program side to kind of like meet you where you are to see what is going on with you. But your benchmarks are quarterly. You'll have 750 referrals. Monthly, that looks like 250 referrals, and weekly, that's 62 to 63 referrals. So this is a high level of participants that will be in and out for you. So this piece is extremely important. And then again, that priority population target, you'll ensure representation across all those Chicago community areas. They're listed in the RFP. We want to know exactly where you're serving, so ensure that you're including that in your responses. 60% of those will come from priority communities. 40% from the priority populations will include justice involved, disconnected youth, foster care individuals, and those experiencing housing instability. We have a couple more outcomes on the next slide. Jillian, if you can hit me with that, thank you. There's also a referral pipeline requirement, and that's the minimum of that 3,000 engaged. 50% of those will come from the DFSS Chicago YouthWorks application portal, formerly known as One Summer. 25% partner agencies, 25% direct outreach. There's also some participant support and compliance. So 3,000, your full 3,000 will complete screening and assessments. Your 3,000 will receive that $25 stipend. All 3,000 will receive that transportation support if it's needed. And then on the data and tracking side, you will track and confirm that day one attendance as everybody's coming into the program. These systems can kind of be built into some of the other intake processes that you may have in place already with some programs that you're already running. We'll be looking at 100% timely data entry into our DFSS chosen data system. And we're also looking for you to maintain accurate demographic assessment and referral records as well as full compliance with monitoring and auditing requirements. And you can hit me with the next slide.
All right, I will take on program B. Okay, job training and employment requirements. And so we're calling them industry-specific skills training and placement programs with the idea that they are being offered some level of training that could be applied to an industry or carry they're earning a credential that could be carried forward in some capacity. And so we want each agency to commit to serving 600 participants annually, and we are projecting 150 quarterly. We know that during the winter months, there could be some changes in scheduling that impact this, but we just want to make sure that there's a clear sense of what the expectations are. Again, the goal is 600 participants to be enrolled in the program at each site. And so service delivery expectations, we want to provide a minimum of 20 hours of job readiness training and work-based learning. This is, again, aligned with that first bullet, the industry-specific skills training, job readiness, however that looks like within your organization. We need you to communicate what industry you are preparing individuals for and the type of credentials that they would be training to receive. And we want to make sure that everyone is getting individualized case management and participant support. We want to match participants to career navigation, training, or employment within 7 days of referral. And so that's going back to that on the previous slide and in the lower bullet, that day one attendance. And so class may not start on that within that 7 days, but at minimum, once our outreach partner has identified a participant, they are connected with the workforce agency, and that agency has engaged them within that 7-day window. And so once that handoff has happened, that's when we can confirm that day one attendance and that they are prepared to start that training, whatever that looks like for your organization. And so again, we want the Program B partners to maintain referral tracking and shared accountability for those referrals and enrollment with the recruitment partner. Next slide, please. And so job skills training and employer connections, this looks like a structured curriculum, whether that's online, whether that's in person. It can look a variety of ways, but we want a structured curriculum that includes resume development, interview preparation, career pathway exploration, and professional communication skills. There's additional things that can be included. Soft skills development and other things. We want to connect participants to industry recognized credentials, whether that's OSHA certifications, SafeServe, whatever that looks like at your agency. And we want to also connect them to permanent employment opportunities. And so we finally want to maintain active employer partnerships and coordinate interviews, hiring events, direct placement opportunities. Whatever that looks like, we also want you, all respondents, to demonstrate active employer engagement. And so we want, finally, as they are transitioning into an employment opportunity, we want each agency to follow through and support them through the onboarding process, as well as those first 90 days through employment retention. Again, we are working with individuals 18 to 24. They may have barriers as they are getting through those steps. This may be their first full-time job. And so we want to make sure that we are providing comprehensive wraparound support to make sure everyone that's getting employed stays employed and has a successful experience. And if they're being connected to another training opportunity, same thing. They are being supported through that onboarding, and they are progressing through that training program that you've connected them to. Next slide. Priority sectors and operations. We want to make sure the training aligns with high demand industry sectors. We have some examples here: healthcare, construction, transportation, logistics, manufacturing, clean energy, security. Anything that you show or evidence that this field or industry is growing. Now you're seeing hiring opportunities. There's projected increase in hiring opportunities over the next 10 years or so. Just want to make sure that you are communicating that within your responses. We also want you to demonstrate a robust employer engagement infrastructure. What does that look like within your agency? Do you have people assigned to that role? Do you have employers that have made hiring commitments with you? What are those? What is the evidence of that employer engagement? We also want you to demonstrate that you have the capacity to meet those training and placement targets that we've established over the course of the 12 months, starting in July through June of this program cycle. We also want you to show how you use trauma-informed, culturally responsive practices. We also have participant support requirements in Program B. And so each participant should receive a $290 stipend upon completion of the training that you have assigned them to. And we want to make sure that everyone is getting ongoing case management and retention support. We also have some operational requirements, which are, this is a reimbursement-based contract. No advances will be given. And so you must be able to demonstrate the ability to make those stipend payments and cover the cost of the program in advance of reimbursement. Finally, we want you to maintain accurate data, timekeeping, and compliance systems, and be able to communicate that in your responses. Let us know how you keep people on track within your organization. This is a high volume project, and so we want to ensure that the organizations responding have the infrastructure in place that will keep people engaged in the process, keep them informed as things change. Time tracking is transparent, and everyone is going through all the steps required to achieve those credentials and to pass any audits or any compliance monitoring that is placed on the program. Next slide. And so we have a sample budget here. We want you to use your organization's experience in completing these budgets and these forms. However, we want to make sure that the stipends are included in the budget and any projected transportation costs, whatever else could be potentially needed, just make sure that shows up within your budget. And if there's additional information or additional costs associated with the program that this funding would not be able to cover, we want you to also show that there are other funding sources that you are using to support the program. And so staff training can be covered with Title 20 funding. The stipends can be covered with our corporate funding. And so we have a projected breakdown of what that looks like. However, we will be looking through these budgets just to see how you propose to cover the cost of the program. And again, just reiterating, if the program that you're proposing is more expensive than what this funding will cover, we need you to show how those other expenses are being covered, whether it's through other funding and or in-kind resources. Next slide. Goals and outcomes. And so we're seeking respondents with evidence of strong past performance serving our target populations. And primarily individuals who are disconnected from school and work. They have system involvement. They may be justice involved. They may be experiencing homelessness. Wide range of barriers to employment. and again, those with disabilities, those with exiting foster care, whatever that looks like, want to make sure that you are showing the experience that you have working with participants with unique barriers to employment, and how you are able to support them towards their employment goals. And so we are expecting that each respondent serve 600 participants. That could look like everyone being served within your organization. There may be collaborations, whatever that looks like. We need to see evidence that 600 individuals will be served and supported with workforce training. We want to deliver those job readiness training and work-based learning supports. Completion of that training, however that looks at your agency, is what we're considering the work-based learning component. And that's where those $290 stipends come in. And so 100% of the participants who complete those requirements, they should be getting that stipend. Placement and credential outcomes. We want a minimum. Not everyone may earn that industry recognized credential, but we want a minimum of 20% of those people enrolled within your programs to get a industry recognized credential. We want employment retention to be tracked for a minimum of 90 days for participants that find employment. And we want, I already skipped that bullet, that minimum placement of 20% into permanent employment or advanced training. And we want to track that for a minimum of 90 days. Finally, employer engagement. We want to provide ongoing employer engagement opportunities for all participants. So whether that's interview support, whether it's site visits, whatever that looks like, the goal is that they're getting exposed to employment opportunities in different industries that they have shown interest in. And we want these employer partnerships to be maintained throughout the program in a way that support placement outcomes. And so as you are connecting them to employment, you are engaging with them to support transportation issues that may come up, address anything that's happening within those first 90 days just to help stabilize them in that job opportunity so that they'll be successful over the long term. Next slide, please. Case management and participant support, that individualized career navigation support, understanding what they being the participants' goals are, connecting them as best as possible to those training opportunities, and helping them to develop an employment service plan or set employment goals so that they can continue once you've gotten them to that next step. They have a roadmap to continue with toward their long-term goals. And finally, we want to maintain consistent engagement with participants to ensure that they stay engaged through training. They complete that training, they earn their stipend, and then they are supported to that next step, whether it's further training within their field or whether it's connected to a permanent employment opportunity. Data and reporting, we want to track all the training outcomes, to track all the credential attainment, track that employment placement, as well as those retention outcomes that we've talked about, whether in the training program or in employment. And so we want 100% timely and accurate data entry. And we want to maintain full compliance with our reporting and monitoring requirements. As we mentioned before, this is funded with Title 20 funding, which comes to us through the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, as well as the City of Chicago corporate funds. And so we want to make sure that we are compliant with both those funding sources. Next slide. Evaluation process. So all submissions will be evaluated independently and scores will be assigned based on the reviewer's assessment of the responses attributed to each question within the selection criteria. And so we'll go through those selection criteria later in the slides, but what we're trying to say is that each application, each response will be evaluated by an independent reviewer who has been trained by our team to use a scoring rubric that we've established. We have expectations for each response, and so they will use that rubric to score your response. So please ensure that all responses are thorough and complete, and they respond to every aspect of the question. Failure to submit a complete proposal or to respond fully to all questions and program requirements may make your submission subject to rejection. The commissioner, upon review of our recommendations, may reject, deny, or approve our recommendations based on previous performance and/or area need. DFSS reserves the right to ensure that all mandated services are available citywide and provided in a linguistically and culturally appropriate manner. Next slide. So digging into each section, here we're talking about community involvement, and your responses will be evaluated based on the following criteria. The respondent demonstrates strong partnerships with community-based organizations, employers, and service providers that support recruitment, referrals, enrollment, and coordinated service delivery to improve participant access and outcomes. The respondent demonstrates the capacity, infrastructure, and cultural competency to effectively serve the identified priority populations and priority communities, including specialized staff, language access, and processes to gather and incorporate client and community feedback. The respondent demonstrates practices that promote fairness and access, supported by leadership that actively engages and/or represents the community served. So again, please review each question and respond accordingly and thoroughly to ensure that those who evaluate your application are able to assess, to make a good assessment of your program's capacity and ability to address these requirements here. Next slide. So for organizational capacity, the respondent demonstrates sufficient staffing structure, qualified personnel, and a hiring strategy to effectively implement, manage, and scale the proposed program. And so again, this program is expected to start on July 1. And so we want to see that your organization, your program is ready to start July 1. And we need to understand what that looks like with regards to the staffing structure, the personnel, if there are positions that need to be filled, what is the plan to make sure that the program is ready to start on July 1. The respondent demonstrates strong fiscal management practices, including systems for monitoring expenditures, maintaining accurate records, and ensuring appropriate financial controls. So make sure that that's addressed in your response. Respondent demonstrates the ability to collect, manage, and securely maintain high-quality data, including disaggregation by participant characteristics, with systems and staff capacity to support reporting, performance monitoring, and data-informed decision-making. And so we want to serve individuals with significant barriers to employment. And so your data system needs to have the capacity to collect what those barriers are, and as well as other information related to preparing for employment, what their needs are with respect to geography. All of those things need to be collected. And so we want to see how it's being collected. And we want to see how you've used that data to support your program. And so we want to see how you've used that data to support your program. And so we want to see how you've used that data to support your program. And so we want to see how you've used that data to support your program. And so we want to see how you've used that data to support your program. And so we want to see how you've used that data to support your program. And so we want to see how you've used that data to support your program. And so we want to see how you've used that data to support your program. And so we want to see how you've used that data to support your program. And so we want to see how you've used that data to support your program. And so we want to see how you've used that data to support your program. And so we want to see how you've used that data to support your program. And so we want to see how you've used that data to support your program. And so we want to see how you've used that data to support your program. And so we want to see how you've used that data to support your program. And so we want to see how you've used that data to support your program. And so we want to see how you've used that data to support your program. And so we want to see how to support performance improvements in the past? And how have you used data about the population that you serve to make a decision to improve or change or update your program? So again, please make sure all questions are responded to thoroughly to ensure that we get an accurate assessment of your organization's capacity. Next slide. Strength of proposed program. And the respondent clearly defines services and program activities that align with the required program elements and outcome goals, demonstrating a coherent, participant-centered pathway from recruitment and enrollment through completion, including partnerships with high-demand industries. And so on the outreach and recruitment side, you have a system that shows how you are engaging participants, how you connect them to workforce, and how you ensure that they are in good hands as they move forward, as well as with the workforce agencies. How are you receiving referrals? How are you connecting them to the appropriate training and making sure that they are starting and completing the program in a way that they are successful? And then how are you connecting with employers in high demand industries? The respondent demonstrates that the proposed program model is informed by evidence and/or best practices and clearly integrates these approaches into program design and service delivery. So why are you doing what you do? How is it trauma informed? What are the best practices specific to your organization that have shown success? What is the research that that informed how you do the work that you do within your organization? So we want to know the why behind your work. The respondent demonstrates strong partnerships that enhance recruitment, service delivery, and referrals, supporting a coordinated, client-centered approach that improves access to comprehensive services. The respondent demonstrates a clear strategy to identify and engage participants, address barriers to participation, and implement program features that support ongoing engagement, retention, and successful completion. And so if you get a referral on July 1, but class doesn't start until August 1, how are you staying engaged? How are you keeping them connected and supported and prepared for class on August 1? How are you making sure that they stay engaged once class begins? And how are you, what does completion, successful completion look like, as well as that handoff to an employer partner? All of those things are important to include in your responses. And this will help us provide an accurate assessment of the strength of your proposed program. Next slide. Performance management and outcomes. The respondent provides recent, within 12 months. It could be 2025 calendar year. We want to see just evidence over the last 12 months that you are operating at a high level, and the data demonstrates progress towards the RFP goals that we've included in the proposal. We want to ensure that you're explaining any the information that you provide. Tell us what success looks like for the project and the data that you're showing us, and tell us how that data is either showing that success, or tell us how the data is showing your areas for improvement. If for example, your program was intended to serve 500 people, but you only served 400 people last year, we need to show you need to show what happened within that gap, and what you're doing to ensure that as the program is implemented, you are achieving the goals of, you'll be able to achieve the goals of this RFP. The respondent demonstrates a structured approach to using data for continuous improvement, including a clear example of programmatic or organizational change made in response to identified performance data. So we want to hear about how, and we want to hear that you have good data collection systems. And we also want to understand how you use that data to improve the quality of service that you make available. And we want to hear about an example of when you had to make a change, or whether it's within your program or within your organization, based on data that your organization collects. The respondent demonstrates the ability to disaggregate data by participant characteristics and regularly uses this analysis to identify and address disparities in access, participation, and program outcomes. And so, again, with all of these questions, want to make sure that your response is thorough, addresses every aspect of the question, in order for us to give a good assessment of your performance management and outcomes within this selection criteria. Next slide. Reasonable cost, budget justification, and leverage of funds. The respondent demonstrates sufficient cash flow and financial capacity to manage program expenses prior to reimbursement and sustain program operations. And so we are asking that you serve 600 individuals. The budget that we have available may not cover the full cost of that work. And so if there's additional resources and funding that is being applied, we would like you to communicate that and show how it supports the program. The respondent demonstrates the ability to leverage additional funding. I was getting ahead of myself. In-kind contributions and partner resources to strengthen and support program implementation. Again, what other funding are you using to support the program? The respondent presents a reasonable, well-justified budget that aligns with the proposed program model, staffing plan, and service delivery approach, supporting high-quality services and the intended outcomes of the RFP. And so any decisions about the budget that you're making, we're asking that you include it in this response, making sure that we understand that there's clear justifications for the line items that you're proposing, and that this model, we want to feel confident that this model, based on the funding, your organization's capacity to administer services in advance of funding, we want to make sure that all the things are in place for a strong start in July. Next slide. Selection criteria, there are attachments that we want you to include, and there are attachments that you may want to include just to ensure that you're clearly communicating your organization's capacity. And so be sure to clearly identify what program you're applying for, whether you're applying for the outreach portion, the recruitment aspect, or whether you're applying for the workforce service portion. Be sure to clearly identify what community areas you plan to serve, including where your office, your in-person offices will be, where individuals will be meeting with your program staff. Those are, and you may have other satellite locations, but we want to make sure you've clearly identified the areas you plan to serve, because we want this program to impact the entire city. Also, clearly identify what high demand industries you will be training participants for. Be sure to attach reports, studies, or other documentation that show evidence of strong past performance. We're asking for that narrative in the response. And if you have reports, those are also great to include, that show evidence of your ability to do this work at the high volume that we're proposing. Also, be sure to attach the resumes for key staff that you have overseeing the program. Finally, be sure to attach your organization's budget and make sure all the program requirements are addressed. We gave some samples. Those are just that, samples. That's going to look, everything will look different within your organization. But just make sure that each aspect is addressed. And if there's other things that you want to include that we did not include in the sample, but you can show clearly that the program requirements are being met and that the goals of the RFP are going to be achieved, please include that. Next slide. And so selection and transition timeline. And so we are at the pre-proposal webinar. Congratulations, and we are grateful that you are here. The due date to submit any questions that you may have is this is the 27th, and which is, I can't see it right now. But just
Monday.
make sure
It's Monday.
Monday.
Yeah.
Make sure that your questions are submitted by Monday, close of business. And we also can't emphasize this enough. All applications must be submitted May 14th, 2026 by 12 p.m., also known as noon. So that's the middle of the day, May 14th, and making sure that everyone, all supporting, all documents have been uploaded, every button has been pushed, everything is completely submitted by May 14th, 2026, and that is a Thursday. The program, we are targeting July 1 as the launch date. And so we will be reviewing the applications right after May 14th, and we will be following up with selected respondents so that the program can begin July 1. Next slide. Okay, this should have been earlier in the presentation, but we will go through it again. Budget contract term is from July 1, 2026 to June 30, 2027. This program is eligible for up to 2 one-year extensions, and this will be assessed based on need, performance, and funding availability. This is a very ambitious project, and we are hoping to get high-quality respondents that show and demonstrate excellent performance. And so we want to advocate that this program continues if the funding is available. And so the total funding we have available is $2.3 million between corporate and Title 20. The annual amount for this RFP by program is, for the recruitment agency, $361,914. We are planning to select one recruitment agency. And for the training and placement agencies, total budget for each agency is $394,284. And we are planning to select 5 respondents. And so please submit a budget for 1 year, that's 12 months of services over that July 1 through June 30 timeframe. Use the reasonable cost question in the application to discuss how you determine the cost reflected in the budget. Be thoughtful and inclusive when developing your budget. Apply for your program's actual costs while being mindful of the funding available for the project. If the program costs exceed the funding available, show in your response how those costs will be covered with either in-kind contributions or additional funding sources. Cost category definitions are attached as budget instructions within the RFP. And I just want to emphasize that responses should be complete and should address every aspect of the question, so that we can clearly and confidently assess your capacity to do the work that you are applying for. Next slide. And as you are developing your budgets, common mistakes that we've seen, fringes, are not always accurate, so double check your calculations. Supplies, they are not sometimes under budget. And so supplies in this instance, maybe bus cards, maybe, well, not bus cards. I'm speaking specifically and thinking about stipends. And so just making sure that the target number of participants being served is accurately reflected in that budget. Client assistance, that's where we're talking about other support that you may want to make available for the client. So just make sure that that's included, whether it's being supported with funds from this RFP, or if there's supplemental other funding that you're using to support that. Make sure your job description titles and your job description uploads have the same title. And so if you put it on the budget, make sure it matches what you put in the resume section or the job description section of the RFP submissions. And make sure you're putting a brief description of the job in the budget document if it's not explicitly included in your application. We're mainly looking in the application at the program staff, but if you have other staff that you want to include and you haven't discussed it in the application, just make sure there's a brief description in that budget document, so that again, we understand where the funding is being applied, and how the resources are being allocated. Put all the budget costs in the appropriate columns and show your match. Next slide. All right, I will pass it to Jillian.
At this time, do we want to address some of the questions that we received so far?
There are a couple in the chat that I think would be helpful to answer live. So yes, Jillian, we will. The first one is, can you apply for program A and B?
You would need to submit 2 separate applications, and demonstrate within each application your capacity to do both services. But the answer is yes.
Are additional industries possible, such as training for networking and or IT support?
Additional industries are welcome to include. However, again, that the data that shows that it's a high demand industry, it would also be important to show that the programs that you are preparing people, the field that you are preparing people for, you have demonstrated evidence of success administering that program, and you have success connecting people to job opportunities within that field. But we are open to high demand industries that were not included in the list.
Is there any flexibility regarding the annual number of 600 participants expected for program B, or is that the set minimum?
That is the set minimum. How you get there is up to each organization. And so that could look like a collaboration with other organization partners. That could be each organization doing it independently because they have cohorts that they could enroll people in on a regular basis. But we want to serve a minimum of 600 individuals per site. 18 to 24-year-old residents of Chicago with barriers to employment. Kathy.
And Mark, if I could just add to that. So one of the reasons why it is a set minimum, I'm sure Mark talked about this earlier, is the mayor's youth hiring initiative that he does every year. This year, we have a goal of providing 30,000 youth with paid opportunities. So the number of youth that you are recruiting and helping place into employment are going towards that number. So that is why the number is set, and why Deputy Commissioner Sanders II keeps talking about how big of an effort this is and how important it is, because it is literally contributing to one of the mayor's priorities, which is giving 30,000 youth paid opportunities over the summer.
And so while we're not expecting all of those opportunities to happen over the summer in this program, that we want to pace it throughout the year. But it is definitely included in the objective that we've talked about of getting 18 to 24-year-olds connected to workforce training and employment opportunities. So thank you for raising that, Kathy.
One last one to answer live. Can other providers assist in recruitment and refer youth to the recruitment agency, or are other providers restricted to waiting for the referral from the recruitment agency?
So in one of the slides, we talked about where we're expecting the participants to be referred from. And so, yes, there is room for the workforce providers to support recruitment. However, we have tens of thousands of applicants, 18 to 24 years old, who have applied to Chicago Youth Works and are interested in employment opportunities, and they want us to follow up with them and make those resources available. And so that will be the primary method of connecting with our participants. However, we also know that there's thousands more that do not apply. And if you are working with them separately, we do want to create a pathway for them to access the program. And so those who are selected from this process, those are things that we will discuss as we start the program in July. Thank you for that question.
And if that's the last question, we'll move forward with going into our application tips. Please feel free to keep submitting your questions. We will pause at the end of the presentation for any additional questions received. Our first application tip, the most important application tip, is to start your application as early as possible and save it as often as possible as you're working on it. If you have never done business with the City of Chicago, please register into iSupplier as soon as possible. Review RFP narratives and application questions closely. Remember, they align with the scope and the selection criteria. Please use the information in the RFP for guidance in formulating your answers. There is a 4,000 character limit, which includes punctuation and spaces. Each response is allotted 4,000 characters. Please try not to use the back button on your browser. And again, we can't stress it enough to start your application as early as possible and save it as often as possible as you go along, and to submit it as early as you can, because that 12 p.m. deadline is a hard deadline. There's nothing we'll be able to do. So please try not to wait last minute on submitting your applications. To submit multiple applications for a single RFP, applicants will need to set up a unique user account in iSupplier. The e-procurement system is not capable of submitting more than one distinct proposal per associated email address. Therefore, applicants must use separate email addresses for each submission. So if you wanted to submit for both program A and B, you will have to use separate email addresses for that. You can submit your application and amend it up until the due date of May 14th at 12 noon. We strongly encourage you to avoid the rush and possible mishaps by submitting early. Please plan on your submission taking up to 30 to 60 minutes. Again, we cannot accept late applications. For e-procurement help, please make use of the e-procurement hotline. The number is 312-744-4357. And they also can be reached at customer support at cityofchicago.org. As for the hotline, it operates during business hours only, which is Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And again, we can't stress it enough to save your application as often as possible and submit it as early as you can. Just a few agency requirements. We require agencies to provide articles of incorporation and any amended articles of incorporation. We also require that agencies submit an IRS affirmation letter. Please note that this is for not-for-profit agencies only. The letter must be dated within 60 days of your submission. You can obtain this letter by calling the IRS directly at 1-877-829-5500. However, if you are a for-profit agency, please submit your original letter from the IRS showing your FEIN number. Your UEI number is required in addition to your central contractor registration, which can be provided from the entity overview page on the sam.gov website. And lastly, the certificate of good standing letter with the state of Illinois is required. We have a labor peace agreement ordinance that applies to all DFSS and CBPH delegates that have 20 or more employees working for their organization. The only exemptions are hospitals. So this ordinance requires contractors to provide written notice to the commissioner or her designee within 72 hours of becoming aware that employees want to organize or that a union seeks to represent employees. Please note that this is only for agencies that have 20 or more employees working for their organization, and that they have employees that want to organize or that a union seeks to represent employees. You may ask, what is an LPA? And that agreement is between an employer and a labor union that ensures that an organizing drive is not impacted by union busting techniques, including employee retaliation, and in return, they will not strike or stop work in a way that will impact human services. For technical assistance, there is a link to the RFP of interest and training documents on our website on the alert section. And for any questions on registration and e-procurement technical assistance for delegate agencies, again, please reach out to customer support at cityofchicago.org, and they also can be reached at 312-744-4357. And we also have training materials on the cityofchicago.org website under online training materials, which includes documents and videos. At this time, we're going to delve into how to enter your responses and accepting any amendments in iSupplier. Step one for accepting the amendments, you select Create Quote from the drop-down menu in the Actions box and then click on Go. This will take you to the application page where you can get started. If the RFP you are interested in has been amended, in this case it will be, you will need to acknowledge and accept that amendment to start and submit your response. And to accept that amendment, you click on View Amendment History, circled here, step 1B. To begin the acceptance and acknowledgement process, please follow these steps after clicking View Amendment History. First, you click on the document number. Next, you click on the infinity or eyeglass icon to review the amended changes to the RFP. And then you click on Acknowledge Amendments button to acknowledge receipt and understanding of the changes and proceed. And by acknowledging the amendment, you are indicating that you are aware of the changes made to the RFP, or that you have read and acknowledged the questions that were answered in the amendment. And then you can move forward. And then once you get to this screen, you can click on the I accept checkbox, and then you click on acknowledge. Then you click on yes to indicate that you confirmed your acknowledgement of the amendment. Lastly, you click on the checkbox that you accept the terms and conditions, and then you click on accept to accept the terms and conditions. And that is the final step in acknowledging and accepting the amendment. Now, when the amendment is accepted and acknowledged, you can move forward with submitting your application. So when you are ready to submit, meaning that you've answered all required questions and you've attached all required documentation, you can start by saving your draft one last time and then clicking continue. If you are missing information, iSupplier will give you an error message up at the top of the page, similar to what's circled here on the screen. Usually that error message directs to something left undone in the application. So in the last example, the error message indicated that the lines found under the Lines tab had not been completed. In the example here, the error is about an unanswered question in the application or the requirement section. The quote value refers to your, in this case, missing answer. So once your application is free from errors, you are then ready to proceed and submit your application. And at this point, clicking continue should put your application into the review and submit phase. Once you get to the screen here, this is like the summary page, and this is also your last chance to review all of your data and to confirm that everything is accurate. So please use this opportunity to check your responses, your attachments, and you scroll to the bottom of the screen to see all of your responses. And at the very bottom of the screen, you will be asked to provide an electronic signature. Please be sure to fill in the signature before checking that box. Lastly, you can click submit. And then once you submit, you will receive a submittal confirmation screen. And e-procurement system will also send a confirmation email within 24 hours of your submission. However, please feel free to call or email me. Again, my name is Jillian Black. I am the procurement proposal coordinator. My email is jillian.black@cityofchicago.org. You can email me if you desire confirmation prior to receiving the confirmation email, or you just want to double check to confirm that your submission has been received. And at this time, we're gonna pause for any additional questions we may have received.
So the remaining questions, we will need to follow up with written responses. The webinar has been recorded, and so the slides will be available with the recording. But for any program questions, as you see, please forward them to the email address that you see on the screen. And those responses will be included in our amendment that Jillian just walked through that you will need to accept to ensure that your application is submitted on time.
And any questions, any other questions you may think about after the webinar has wrapped can still be sent in, but the deadline is Monday, the 27th at 5 p.m. And any technical questions, anything regarding our supplier, those can be sent to customer support at cityofchicago.org. And you can also call the hotline. The number is listed on the screen. And the opening hours is Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Before we close out, does the workforce team have anything to add?
Thank you for joining this webinar. We appreciate your attentiveness and we look forward to reviewing your responses.
You everyone enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.